I'm not going to labor through the preliminaries too long because you've been here for a while, and I want to jump right in. I'm going to detour a bit from our series, the current series we are on, entitled Relational Maturity, and I want to do something that's more fitting for this moment. If you could meet me in the book of Matthew, the 25th chapter, then we'll get to it. Matthew 25, beginning at the 14th verse. Let's stand together in reverence to the reading of God's holy word. Matthew 25:14. It's a long one, so if you have some high heels on, you can kick them off. Make yourself at home. If they're cute but they're tight, you're going to go ahead and relieve yourself and kick them off. Matthew 25:14. When you get there, say something. If you're not there yet, say, hold up, wait a minute. All right. If you're visiting with us for the first time, just wave your hand at me. Let me know that you're visiting. Antioch, if you see a hand around you, just go show them some love real quick, if you will. Just show them some love. Show them a little love. Matthew 25:14. Bring me up a little bit, Mike. Matthew 25:14. For it is just like a man about to go on a journey who called to his own slaves and trusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, each according to his own ability. And he went on his journey. Immediately the one who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and gained 5 more talents. In the same manner, the one who had received the 2 talents gained 2 more. But he who received the 1 talent went away and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, say long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. The one who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 more talents, saying, Master, you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I've gained 5 more talents. His master said to him, well done, you good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Also, the one who had received the 2 talents came up and said, Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have gained 2 more talents. The master said to him, well done, good and faithful slave. You are faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one who had also received the 1 talent came up and said, Master, I knew you'd be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. And I was afraid, and went away and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours. But his master answered to him, you wicked, lazy, big-headed, slave, you knew I reap where I did not sow and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have at least put my money in the bank, and on my arrival I would have received money back with interest. Therefore, take away the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For whoever has, more will be given, and he who will have abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he has shall be taken away from him. Throw out this worthless slave into the outer darkness. In that place where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. Right before you take your seats, I want you to take your boniest finger on your hand, put it in the face of your neighbor, and ask them, what will you do with what you have in your time? Well, I don't have time to give an exhaustive treatment or sense of context for these words. I think we will all understand the meaning quickly. But in her podcast, Unbothered, Jamil Hill cites various things, and there's a line that arose there, and it was used in another podcast, I believe, that she had with Angela Rye or someone. And there's a one-liner I can't seem to forget. I had a friend that brought it to my attention, and it is one of those statements that not only haunts me, but it propels me. And it's not a question, but it's a statement as she observes those who have gone before us and done it right, and those who have passed on not blessing but burden to the next generation. She does it not simply reflectively, but it's meant to prompt the individual who is in the midst of living out, stewarding their life's journey. And here is what she says as she points out those who have passed on burden rather than blessing. She looks to us and says, don't be that ancestor. Don't be that ancestor. And I know what you're thinking. You're right in the middle of your prime. Everything is going well. It's copacetic. But like I did last week, I think sometimes it's significant to start at the beginning from the end. Last week, I challenged you to think about your life, to take a moment to think about the words that will be uttered at your funeral service. And I know it was uncomfortable. It took me about 30 minutes to get y'all back. But it was meant to provoke you as you're forced to wrestle through your own mortality, because there is nothing more calibrating for your current movement than wrestling through your mortality, through looking at the end and what you would like to be said concerning your life. She goes a step beyond our funeral service and beyond our end. She puts it all the way out as to cause us to consider ourselves as ancestors, as we are ancestors, and those who live this life as we've lived it look to the example or receive the baton that we pass. The question is, will we have given them advantage in this race? Will we have helped to close the gap, or will we give them an inherited loss? Will we force them to close the gap that we were unwilling to close? Well, what kind of ancestor, have you ever thought about that, will you be? There's a book on procrastination, and this we're going to talk about this unfaithful servant in a moment, but we're just going to play with this a bit. I have ADD, as many of you know, and it's manageable. It's managed for the most part. And, I can lose sense of time. Many of you guys are on linear time. I'm on circular time. It's a different pace. And I remember reading something as it relates to procrastination and putting things off, and it helped me a bit. It said, people procrastinate because they have no empathy for their future self. We procrastinate because we're enraptured with the now and have no sight of or empathy for the 60-year-old us. I don't want to lose the room. If you're already 60 or above, we may eat the hog mogs and chitlins still because we have no empathy for the 80-year-old self. Procrastination happens, and we squander our now because, again, we have no empathy for our future self. But again, she extends this beyond that. It is not simply that we're to have empathy for our future self, but what is the task we've been given for the generations that come after us? We've received an inheritance. We've received the baton. I love this poem by Micah. We don't have to do it the same way. There are certain things that are universal. Their resilience is universal if we're going to make progress. Care for your people is universal if you're going to make progress. There are some things that are universal, but this is a different leg of the race. I went to poly, and sometimes I ran the straightaway. Other times when I received the baton, I ran the curve. And you don't run a curve like you do a straightaway. Now, there are universal principles. You have to run hard for both. You have to pump your arms with both. You have to make sure that you pass the baton properly with both. You have to ensure that you stay in your lane. Universal principles with both. But when you run a curve, you turn your foot just a little bit, ever so slightly. Don't give away Polly's secret sauce, y'all. Wilson still doesn't know about that trick. You don't run a curve like you run a straightaway. There are universal principles, and there are things that we do the way they've been done. There are great strategies we receive from the generation that have come before us, but you have to know the difference in between running a straightaway and running a curve. You have to turn your foot just a little bit. Like he said, it's grandma's recipe, but from me watching it, are you with me, in applying what I know to apply? It'll never taste like hers, but it is uniquely mine. And there's a continuity from one generation to the next. We've received something from those that have gone before us. We have to run our race as we properly steward what we receive, but we also have to pass something on to the generation that will go beyond us. And the question is, what kind of ancestor will you be? What kind of ancestor will you be? While so much has been spoken about the struggle for equality and equity in America, steps toward maximizing or growing what's been in your hand growing what's been in your hand is one of the most beneficial lessons to be learned in this hour. And I hope that you don't see this as just another Bible tale, but something that gives us the sense of possibilities by also giving us a prophetic warning. I want you to see this. While I'm moved by past contribution, it begs the question, here it is, what will I do? What will I do with what I've been entrusted in the time that I have? This is, can't you hear it? This is a passage of time. This is a passage that is timeline, because all action takes place in time. It won't remain the same forever, but there is a window of time. There are multiple things that are breathed into this passage. There is time spoken of, and we're going to get to that in a moment. There is the concept, here it is, of stewardship. While the passage uses the term slave, please don't use this as an excuse to share that the Bible in this passage teaches slavery. Trust me, this wasn't chattel slavery. Trust me, this wasn't slavery as experienced in America. When he says slave, another translation is servant. A better translation of this word is not simply servant, but it is steward. Say steward. Steward. Now, please understand, we won't get to this in a moment. This ain't the slavery that you're thinking of. These are servants and stewards. Because nobody gave this kind of bread, because talent is not a gift here, but talent is money. And we're going to talk about just how much money they received. The one that received one talent, and I know y'all feel real sorry for him, please understand, don't feel sorry for that brother. Because one talent was about 6,000 denarii. A denarii was about, a day's wage. If someone worked 300 days out of the year, what this servant was given who had one talent would have paid for 20 years of labor. Yeah. So we're going to get there in a minute. And this one denarii, listen to me, 20 years of labor, he was entrusted with wealth. He was entrusted with riches. He was entrusted with someone's entire career at one moment. That money was given to his hands. So this was not an ordinary slavery. These were servants. They were stewards. And here's the idea. Stewards were people that are entrusted with something that does not belong to them, but belongs to someone else. However, they are to manage it like it belongs to them with the thought. Number one, we talk about stewardship, and stewardship is managing someone else's affairs. As you know, everything we are, everything we possess. As believers, here's how we see it. We don't own anything, but we are stewarding this life. Because God has given us life. Every time he breathes breath into our lungs, every time we get up in our right mind, we are to steward this life. We are to steward the time we have. We're to steward the energy. We're not only to steward our energy, our time, and our health, but we are to steward our resource. Our resource is not for our own personal expenditures, but there should be an inquiry from the Lord. What am I to do, not only with the time and the energy I have, what am I to do with the resource that you entrusted to my care? Does my resource, my time, and my energy match what I say my heart is after? Is it, in this case, listen to me, submitted to the plans and the will of God? And if it is, it should look like something. It should impact the lives of people that God cares about if it's entrusted to God. It should not be consumed on myself, but I should look outward and be a blessing to those that God loves. Are you still here with me? As I steward this is the idea that I'm entrusted with something as given by God and not my own, to manage it like it was my own. But number two, stewardship is not simply the idea of managing someone's stuff that has been entrusted to you. Stewardship is the idea of how you manage it. It is not simply managing someone's things. It is managing someone's things, but also being soberly aware of the fact that I am accountable, and there will come a reckoning for the way that I've managed what I've been entrusted. Yeah, this is not classic slavery, but this is an upgrade. This is a master or a wealthy person entrusting to his servants all that he has in abundance, with the idea that I'm going to come back and there will be an account for how you stewarded what was mine. Now, I want to go a little bit further, but some more questions coming your way. Here's the question. How have you stewarded? How have you stewarded what is God's? How have you stewarded your time? What have you done with the passing moments, the passing days? What has God called you to that you're still fitting to get ready to do? I'm fitting to get ready to start my business. I'm fitting to get ready to write my book. I'm fitting to get ready to finally say yes to my ministry call. I'm fitting to get ready. Here it is, Super Sunday. I'm fitting to get ready to go back to school. Oh, the Spirit broke out on that one. Is that the one? That's the one. In this passage is meant, listen to me, to tie our ultimate goal, not just personally, but it's meant to tie who we are, who we're becoming, and what we will leave behind to our right now. It is meant to scare us a little bit. It's interesting that there are categories of wickedness. And I tell you, the church has got to get evolved. It got to evolve a little bit. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We've got to discover and talk through some things that are more detrimental, as there are three categories of sin. There's the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, and the pride of life. Most of the church is still stuck on the lust of the flesh, not realizing that the others are devouring us and devouring our progress. We talked about how the pride of life is devouring our progress, but the reality is, listen to me, there are categories that we don't even talk about that the Bible calls Jesus. This is his story that the Bible calls wicked. Are you still here with me? Now, there is a place for sexual immorality. There is a place for drunkenness. There is a place for all of these things. But we got to talk about some other things, y'all. Because what is preventing generational progress is sometimes related to those things, but other times related to our stewardship and our inability to maximize the time and the intellect and the resource that God has given us to harness all those things as we push our capacities to their limit for not only the benefit of ourselves and our family, but for the benefit of our community, the benefit of others. Sometimes it's not even direct benefit as it relates to your resource going into somebody else's pocket, but sometimes the platitude you reach against all odds inspires someone you'll never see who looks like you. If he did it, if she did it, then I can do it. This passage is a reminder to us that the only things, that there's more than sexuality and substance that is frowned upon biblically. When's the last time we did a message on laziness? Jesus' words to this lazy slave were harsher than they were to any hoochie. Y'all not talking to me. Jesus, in fact, he knew people's reputation and said, come on, walk with us, y'all. We're not scared of you. Walk with us, walk with us, walk with us long enough, and you won't want 5 or 6 different men. Walk with us long enough, and it's going to be all right, baby. You will be transformed in your walking with us. Yet, when it comes to laziness and squandering the resource, the mental resource, the physical resource, the time resource, the chronological resource. When he says, listen, when he says wicked and lazy slave, he lashes out against this man for not maximizing his potential. How are you stewarding your potential? Yeah, it's supposed to get quiet. It's cool. I used to love when, amen, y'all run the aisles, but now I like it when it gets deathly quiet. I have a friend who says you could hear a rat licking ice. What have we done with our resource? If we look back and we had a good time, we turned up, and we shut it down in valet with a new car and some good rims, it made us feel real good. But the question is, what kind of ancestor will you be? Are you one who is on a trajectory of passing down burden instead of blessing? It is nestled into this concept of stewardship. Is not separated from generational transfer biblically. A wise man, here it is, lays an inheritance for his children's children. That's biblically. But outside of direct reference to that, it nestled into the biblical narrative and worked into the fabric of the lives of the people was the idea of generational transfer. I'm receiving something that was fought for. How am I stewarding what I received? And how am I not only preserving, but expanding what I received to give the next generation, those I will pass this on to, a greater advantage? Can't you see it? You can't even talk about God without speaking of are seeing the generational consideration in threes. I am the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. They could not even see or speak to God or approach God without the framework of generational continuity passed down. As they thought about the relationship with God they had, they realized that they didn't get their start just because they were that good. But this was a faith that was passed down from Abraham and Isaac. There was an Abraham and an Isaac before me. And as Abraham was living this out, he had his generations in mind. You couldn't even approach God without the idea of generational continuity, seeing what is passed down and thinking through what you will pass down, and not just in physical resource, but in wisdom, in insight, with practical revelation, journeying with the same God that got you through the mess that you were in. And while we've evolved and become extremely intelligent, there are people that received in the recipe passed down in many respects the strategy without the God that got y'all through. Are you with me? That was left out of the recipe. There is a continuity. There's no way that I see what I'm stewarding without being mindful of the sacrifices of people before me. When there are things that happen in this church, or when there are people that over the years, and thank God for a healthy ministry. I praise God. This is a good assignment. But over the years, as you see at times, folks who have tried to come through and stir chaos and dissension, anytime you gather people, that is the reality. And sometimes you see me begin to think about how to preserve the unity and move into that, because I don't see this as something that started when I got here. See, I don't see Antioch Church like a good majority of you see Antioch Church. It is not just another church to me, but I cannot see Antioch Church without thinking about the chicken dinners. Y'all won't talk to me. The chicken dinners that my grandparents sold along with other faithful members to buy a building whose sanctuary was the size of our stage. See, you see a new building downtown Long Beach. I don't see that. Every time I step on this stage, I look around and say, this is the same size as the building that they sacrificed by selling chicken dinners to get. This is the same place where my great-grandmother mortgaged her house so that they could have the rest of the money they needed to have an official space to gather the people of God. There is that at no point do I feel like I'm just that fly. Are you still here with me? I know that I'm standing on the shoulders of somebody else. I'm standing on sacrifices. I'm standing on sweat. I'm standing on blood. I'm standing on tears. I'm standing on the faith that stepped out when they didn't know how they were going to make it, and when it looked like the doors were going to close, but God came through right in the nick of time. People wonder why I don't quit. You don't know what I'm standing on. I'm standing. I'm standing on memories. I'm sorry, can I just speak parenthetically for a moment? That's why you have to pass the story down. Don't just give your kids the benefit without telling them about the struggle. Because if you give them the benefit without telling them about the struggle, they'll squander it like it didn't cost somebody something for them to be going to the school they're going to, and driving what they're driving, and going to school where they're going to school. You ought to make sure that you give them the blessing, but don't let them forget about the struggle. There were some tears that put those clothes on your back. There were some times I wanted to give up, but hung in there, not just because I love Jesus, but because I was trying to feed y'all. Are you still here with me? Don't give them the blessing without the story. Y'all shouting right on top of chicken dinners and didn't even know it. It costs something, and this cost is what calibrates us. This cost is what sobers us as you're handed the mantle, as you receive the baton from people that have run with everything that they had in them. There is a passion that comes out of you. It started some of this with Dr. Karenga, but you've taken the baton and you're continuing to run. And you spoke to some people in this place that changed their trajectory because you did it. There is the stewardship should calibrate us. Somebody handed this to us. And at some point you will hand this to somebody. The question is, what will you do with what you have in the time that you have? Time. This is not eisegesis. This is exegesis. I'm not reading into this passage. Time. The Bible said he gave these stewards, he had trusted to them these things and went away for a long time. Time. There's a timing to this. Look at your neighbor and tell him, you don't have forever. Yeah. There's time. You don't have forever. But here's the idea. You've been entrusted something. Put your hand out like this. Look at your neighbor and tell them, you got something in your hand. Yeah. Now, you may not like it, but you got something in your hand. Now, don't be mad. They may have more. But you got something in your hand. I know it's one talent, but it ain't a small amount. There's enough in your hand to do something. And God doesn't hold you to a standard that you got to do everything, but he does expect you to do something with what's in you, something with your intellect, something with your resource. You don't have resource, but something with your relational equity. You don't know how to do it, but you have access to people who do know how to do it. Something with your relationship, something with the breath in your body, something with the gift that God's given you, something with the book concept or idea, something. I know you haven't gone to business school, but that cake that'll make you slap your mama, something with it. It's more than for family reunions for everybody to say, that sure was good to see you next year. Baby, cut that bad boy up, box it, put it on Instagram, are you with me? And open up shop. That is your business. Sometimes you need a business degree. Other times you can slay them with some fire pound cake. Look at your neighbor, tell them, is that the recipe? There's something in your hand. You braid hair twice as fast as everybody else for the same quality. And people are tired of sitting in the shop for 8 hours for one head. You have something in your hand. Use what you have in your hand to get where you're going. And I'm going to give you your well done. You don't have to give your kids, the next generation, everything that everybody else does, but here is the rule. Give them more than you had when you came into this life. Give them more when you leave this life than they had when you came into this life. You gotta do something because you have something in your hand. And here's what messes us up. What messes up our hand. We don't play our hand. Often looking at somebody else's hand. Why did he get fired? If I had two, I would have had one to waste and I could have made money on the other one. Of course, they could take risks because they have more to take risk with. Let me explain something to you. This is a scalable principle. If you're not willing to take risk with $100, you are not willing to take risk with $100 million. If you're not willing to give $100. Stop saying, Lord, if you bless me with $1 million, then I'll give back 100,000. You don't give $10 out of the 100 in your hand. It is a scalable principle. Are you with me? You're not going to do more with more. You're going to do the same thing you did with little. Hold on to it, guard it, not risk anything, not stretch yourself. Allow time to pass by as you're fitting to get ready to do it. No, I need some people in this place who realize if you're going to leave anything of advantage to the next generation, you're going to have to risk some things. You're going to have to forget about what's in everybody else's hands and complaining that they got more, complaining that they have two-parent household, or complaining they went to a better college. Well, listen, you better take this city college and slay your Goliath. Are you still here with me? Until another door opens up. Look at your neighbor, tell them, stop complaining about what you don't have and bless God for what you do have in your hand. I don't have everything I want. I don't have everything you have, but I have enough to fulfill my assignment in my generation. I have enough voice. I have enough strength. I have enough influence to touch one somebody and to turn their life around. Look at your neighbor. Tell them you have enough to do something. God doesn't hold you accountable for what you don't have. He simply asks, what did you do with what you do have? And even if it's a little, if you can learn to bless God like Jesus blessed those few fish and few loaves, if you can learn to bless the little you have and offer it to God, he'll feed a multitude with your little bitty lunch. Touch somebody, tell them God will do with what you have. All right, we gotta go. He says, give me about 10 more minutes. I promise 10. He says, after he came back, after a long time, say long time. Promotion and demotion is never instantaneous. It is always incremental. Progress is rarely instantaneous. Progress is generally incremental. And here's what will mess us up. When progress is incremental, it will either give you disappointment or false security. What do I mean? It means we look the same. But here's the deal. One of us, if we're refusing to move out with what God's given us, sometimes we assume that it's cool because God has not come requiring that we give account yet. Or we've been doing good. And reward and celebration has not come yet. Because promotion and demotion takes time. Every day you go to work and are putting in the work and giving your best and have to be at the same level as Betsy, who is not doing a doggone thing. It's not time for review yet because promotion and demotion take time. And we rarely mark progress when there is no celebration or demotion. And so it makes us comfortable. I came to rouse somebody out of your comfort because not only will there be an ultimate reconciling of things, but I found about God is that God will create, or will bring in this life incremental seasons of promotion and demotion. There is ultimate promotion and demotion, but there's also incremental promotion and demotion. And sometimes God takes a long time before God promotes. That's why the Bible says, don't be weary in well doing, for at the proper time you'll receive a harvest if you don't give up, if you faint not. Because sometimes you can be doing everything you know to do, and there is no celebration yet because your season or your time of elevation has not yet arrived. And if that's you, keep doing it. Keep fighting. Keep grinding. Keep pushing. Keep lifting up your voice. Are you with me? It may not seem as if there's progress, and it may appear that those who are not doing a thing are at the same place, but your time is coming. I don't know who I'm talking to, but I came to declare your time is coming. And I'm not talking about the pie in the sky or the sweet by and by. I'm talking about in this lifetime, your works will speak for you. Your gifts will open a door for you that nobody will be able to deny. So stick in there and keep laboring, for your labors are not in vain. But if you've been on cruise control, same word, promotion and demotion and lack of results come over time. Jay-Z puts it this way. I can't remember the context because it's been so long since I've listened, but I think he was talking about resource. He said, you got that flash now, but time will reveal money. And I think it was set to the context of someone rubbing shoulders with him in the club, who he was saying, I'm at a different level, but in the club, we all look the same. You came in with your nice clothes. You came in with your chain. We drove up in the same car. He said, you got that flash now, but over time, you'll see the difference in between my drive, my work, and you who are spending time obsessed with the flash but not building anything. He said over time there will be a marked distinction. Sometimes it's hard to make incremental progress. Sometimes it's hard to do the right thing. Sometimes it's hard to be a steward when the temptation is to squander. Sometimes it's hard to say no to another night at the club because you're saving for a down payment. Sometimes it's hard to be on the dating scene and not to have the whip that lets you pop out and show them. You may have to develop your personality a little bit. So sometimes it's difficult. But every incremental decision that we're making, we listen to me, we're stewarding something. Something that in our lifetime will eventually inevitably be seeable. But ultimately, listen, something in our lifetime that, whether you believe it or not, whether you are passing on to the next generation your progress or lack of it. We are passing on to the next generation our progress or lack of it. The master comes to the man that has 5. He said, I've gained 5 more. The first two, listen to Nip. And they did what? Oh, y'all not tracking with me? They doubled up, mother. They doubled up. The first one had 5. He said, Master, I gained 5 more. He said, well done. Second one had 2. He said, Master, I've gained 2 more. I wasn't distracted by the one that had 5 because I'm running my own lane. I gained 2 more. He said, well done. He goes to the man that has 1. He said, Master, watch this. I have one. He said, didn't I give you one? Yeah, but I preserved it. I didn't lose anything. He said, but what did you gain? He said, no, I know. Watch it. He said, I know you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seeds. The reason I didn't produce is because you're hard. All right, let me see if I can put it another way. The reason that I don't have more than I've been entrusted with is because of the man. That's a contemporary translation. And we want every advantage we can. We want everything we can, every advantage. And we need to continue to fight for every advantage to flourish and for equal playing field. But the reality is, he said, in this life, you're going to have trouble. In this life, as you're on your ascent, there'll be haters. There'll be people that don't want to see you there. There'll be people that are close to you that wish it was them. There'll be people that take credit for your work and sign their name to it like it's their own. And you will have to watch their ascent and watch their promotion as they've stolen your ideas. In this life, he said, you will have troubles. In this life, there will be discrimination. In this life, there'll be racism. In this life, listen to me, in this life, there will be conflict. Be sober about that. He said, but here's what I want you to do. Leave it to me. You push. You fight. That may be exclusively your lane. But he said, what I don't want to hear is that you didn't do anything with what I gave you. You may not multiply it, but there should be some addition. You shouldn't come out with what you came in with. You got to fight. There's too much God in you. I didn't put my spirit in you and give you my word. I'm not working on your behalf. And faith is not just for you to lift your hands in church and to say amen and to dance on chairs. But faith is to leave this building and to believe that God will do exceedingly and abundantly above all that I'm able to ask or think. To believe that this idea is going to work. To believe that though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, even then will I be confident. You want to talk about the inheritance we received with dogs sicked on them and with fire hose washing them down the street and with legislation stacked against them. They were able to overcome because they didn't keep church in church. They didn't keep faith in the pews. But when they went out to a hostile environment, they were able to come forth with resilience because the same faith that caused them to lift their hands and lift their voice also lifted their spirit right in the middle of it. He says, I didn't produce because you're a hard man. I want to destroy the spirit of I can't in this house. I want to demolish the spirit of I can't in this house. And I know that seems rudimentary, but it's had so many of us stuck, had so many of us plagued. I can't do because of something outside of myself. I can't do because of someone outside of myself. The question is, what do you have in your hand, and what are you going to do with what is in your hand? Because while you're saying you didn't produce because I'm a hard man, well, there are two other witnesses on your left side and on your right side who dealt with this same hard man and doubled everything they have. How dare you say what you can't do when there are people living on your left and on your right doing what you said is impossible against all odds? I'm not saying it's not going to be difficult, but as I said at the top of this year, this is not going to be an easy year. But if the footmen have wearied you, How are you going to run with the horses? Look at your neighbor, tell them accelerate your pace. The world's not slowing down. Hate is not slowing down. Discrimination is not slowing down. And we got to take everything that we received from our ancestors, but run our race with a curve. Look at somebody, tell them, turn your foot. We want to innovate some things. We're going to take the best of what it was, and we're going to take some stuff and remix it, innovate some things. Look at your neighbor, tell them, turn your foot. We're going to round this corner. He said, I couldn't do because of you. Let's kill it. I pray that for the rest of this year, let's challenge each other to no longer utter what we can't do because of somebody else. I got 5 claps. We're going to get there. What I can't do with what God's entrusted me, what he's put in my hand, in my time. No, listen, it may not be what it was this time 10 years ago, but it's going to be something. Best believe that. I'm going to work. It's going to be something. I'm going to go to work right in your face. While you're hating me, I'm going to be producing. While you're scheming on me, I'm going to be praying. And I'm going to watch God prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. I still believe that there's more with me than there is against me. I still believe that no weapon formed against me shall be able to prosper. I still believe that God's causing all things to work together for the good of them who love the Lord and are the called according to his purpose. I believe that I'm going to do more. I'm going to produce more in my lifetime. I'm going to leave the next generation with more than I received. What kind of ancestor will you be? We got to go. For real? But you've heard the story of my grandfather, T.M. Chambers, who graduated from Princeton with a doctorate in 1920s while black people couldn't even ride on the front of the bus. His father, Cicero Chambers, get this, was a slave. My grandfather, y'all, listen, I got old soul. My grandfather, ready for this, was born in 1897. Grandfather. He had my mom when he was 65 years old. Praise God for those genes. Lord, may it be unto me. He 65 years old. His father, get this, was a slave by the name of Cicero Chambers. He got a little lonely. I believe it was a plantation or wherever he was. He got a little lonely as a slave, and I'm assuming that he did not have a suitable choice on that plantation. But somehow, in addition to his duties as a slave, he was able to, and there doesn't specify, the story doesn't specify, but he was able to earn money while a slave. And somehow, I believe is it $1,500? Okay. My mom doesn't know, so I'm gonna make it up. He was able to either accumulate either $1,200 or $1,500 over time, incrementally, while a slave. And I don't know how this worked out, but I guess he decided with all of that money he was able to save up as a slave, rather than making another move, he went and bought himself a wife. I guess he said, you know what, listen, ain't nobody on this plantation. Let me see what they got going on over here. 15, bought himself a wife. They loved one another deeply from what I understand. But the day came where he realized that he was not able to accelerate his plan to buy their freedom, and it was time for them to be free. And so what he did is he went with tears in his eyes to his wife with the promise that if you allow me to sell you back into slavery, I promise you I'm going to come back and get you. He sold her into slavery, back into slavery. With tears in his eyes, he walked away from her. I can't imagine what that reality had to have been like. As he's walking away with tears in his eyes, and because of that time, he was able to go and accelerate his pace. And he came back just as he promised, to the place where she was sold back into slavery. And he presented the money to buy her freedom. Both of them became free. Listen. And he went on to be one of the founding pastors, the founding members of Bishop's College in Texas that was to train African American clergy persons because they couldn't study anywhere else. His son went on to gain a doctorate from Princeton and was one of the leading voices himself. Dr. T.M. Chambers and Dr. Gardner Taylor and others were leading voices in helping Martin Luther King with his movement when the senior Baptist statesmen wouldn't give him an opportunity because he was too radical and they did not like him. They started Progressive. My grandfather was the first president of Progressive Baptist Convention, and the primary reason that was formed was to create a platform to give Dr. King the opportunity to do the work in that region. Those are good ancestors. The question is, with the time, with the resource, with the intellect, with the breath in your lungs, with the gift of life, and a heart for Christ, the question that hovered over their lives now hovers over ours. What kind of ancestor will we be?